Okay, so we are on now. This is the big one, isn't it? Violations of Ihram. So the only one that invalidates your whole Hajj is if someone has sexual relations before Arafah. Okay, that's generally not going to happen. The next one after that, let me just make sure, is when you have to slaughter a camel, is sexual relations after Arafat, or tawaf in a state of major ritual impurity. So that's like a worst case scenario for a sister. If she's on her menses, she basically, and there's no way, she has to go home. There's no other escape. To get her out of Ihram, she's got to do a tawaf. And so some of the scholars have allowed her to do the tawaf in that state, but she have to slaughter a camel. Okay, so that's a worst case scenario if it happens. But
like you meant to start whilst doing tawaf.
Basically, you do it in a state of menses,
Okay.
and then you have to slaughter a camel.
A camel,
Okay,
okay.
it's considered valid according to some, but I said that's a really worst case scenario. Okay. I've heard this. I don't know. It's some kind of medication that can stop the bleeding and stuff, like for a short time. So that's considered, like in the Maliki school, it's considered only a period while the blood's flowing, and so that's an option as well for people. If it's, Next one. So this is the one where people usually get hit with. Okay. So sexual relations before coming out of Ihram. That means, say someone. What happens is, when you. This is an important point. Is that when you perform the waqfa Arafah, okay, and then Arafat, sorry, and then you are waiting for your sheep to be slaughtered, okay. Once your sheep's slaughtered, you're out of Ihram, but it's a semi-state of Ihram still.
Okay.
So that period between you coming out of Ihram and you doing the tawaf, there's still one prohibition on you, which is engaging in sexual relations. Okay, everything else is permissible. It's like a semi-state of Ihram there. Okay, so you'll be taking the Ihram off. You can wear perfume, you can do all the things. That's the one thing that still can't be carried out between that period.
That's after you've done the first stoning?
That's after the sacrifice.
After
So,
sacrifice.
Do your final tawaf.
yeah, so that gap between the sacrifice and tawaf is still called a semi-state of Ihram. Everything's permissible for you except that one thing.
So when does that semi-state of Ihram begin?
Well, after the sacrifice.
After sacrifice.
And do we need to find out if it's with the sacrifice
Yeah,
as part
Yeah,
of
you have to be sure about that one. So it's I don't know how they do it now, but when I was there, it was a phone call. You get a phone call to say your animal's been slaughtered.
At that point, where would you usually be? Are you in Mina or are you back in
It
Mecca?
depends.
Right.
We were in Mecca, waiting so we could do tawaf. It depends, and we speak about the options for you
So
there.
do you do tawaf after your sacrifice?
Yeah.
Have to.
We'll talk about that as well.
Alright, okay.
Yeah, that's the recommended way of doing it. There's a whole debate about the disorder thing. We'll talk about that on the day.
Okay.
I'm going to look at all the situations that can happen to you. What's really handy for you is to speak to your Hajj group and say, what are you doing on Mina? When are you going? And they might not be able to answer all those questions, but it gives you sort of an idea, because then you can bring these fiqh issues up to me, before going.
Okay.
But I prefer my emails so you can contact me if need be. But generally there's scholars travelling with you anyway.
Quick question: is after the slaughter, before you've shaved your hair, is you still out of the minor kind of Ihram?
What a good question. Just because there's this issue with perfuming the barbers. Some of them apparently say that they perfume the cream.
Right.
But you're still in Ihram until your hair's cut.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That's
Until a quarter of your head is cut, you're still considered in a state of Ihram. And for sisters, a quarter of your hair's clipped. So we'll talk about that. Trimming 5 nails from the hand and foot. So say basically, I can't see you. So say you're in a state of Ihram and you're in Jeddah and you just start buying your nails. Okay, and you've gone through all 5 of them. Okay, that's a dam. Okay, if it's less than that, it's not a dam. So don't panic if basically you start biting one nail. Oh, that's not a dam. Okay, but if you went through 5, yes. Yeah. Shaving or cutting a quarter of the head I can't see that happening. So don't panic if you wake up and you've got hair on your pillow and you think, oh my goodness me, or you're brushing your hair.
So women, can we comb or brush
You
our
shouldn't.
You
Yeah,
shouldn't.
yeah.
Okay.
Whilst you're in a state of ihram,
Yeah.
as I said, it's you're supposed to be neglecting your state. So it's
Yeah.
not you're in the tent, you know, in the minna, and there you are like brushing your hair and making yourself look beautiful and stuff like that. So it's not recommended to brush your hair, but it is permissible for you to have baths and showers.
And if our
that's
hair does fall out,
no, if it falls out naturally, that's not an issue.
okay.
But if you tug it out or so
Yeah,
forth,
yeah.
that, as I said, even if you brush your hair, there's not going to be a dump, because there's no way you're going to get a quarter of your hair come out when you brush it, you know.
Okay.
So don't think it's a dumb issue.
Okay.
Okay. Applying fragrance or oil of any kind to a whole limb or a garment or of clothing one is wearing. So limbs we consider to be, that's a limb.
Okay.
Your thigh is a limb. Your shin is a limb. Your foot is a limb. So if you apply perfume to that whole area, that's a dum. Now that's not going to happen. But what is going to happen is what? This is a major. Huh?
You have to pay.
No, what's going to what when could you end up perfuming a whole limb?
If your clothes are fragrant?
Showers possible. Yeah, but there's something even more common that can happen.
What if your clothes have got the wash?
Yeah, I mean, if you've washed your, that's an issue people bring up about. So clothes, you shouldn't wash them with
Perfume.
Washing your hands with
But generally, most washing powders are not that strong. It's got to be quite a strong scent. So if it's a mild smell on it after you, that's not an issue. Okay. What's the most common one is washing your hands with soap, because that's something perfumed and it's a whole limb. It's two, in fact. But if it's done in the same sitting, it's only one done. So this happened to me straight away. I was on the aeroplane, went to the bathroom in the aeroplane. Simple thing to do, isn't it? Okay. The most common ways you can get a whole limb perfumed is either washing your hands with soap, that's a dum straight away, or baby wipes for kids. You know, you're changing the baby's bum or something, the nappy, and you pick up the wipe. It might end up perfuming your hands. So these are issues that people need to be reminded of. That just be cautious. The only other times you're really going to get perfumed is like sometimes when you're walking, doing your umrah or something. Some guy puts some perfume on your hand, but that's not a full limb. And as long as you get rid of it, like just get some water on it, wipe it off, and wash it off.
There's no penalty.
That's
just for a little bit.
There's a penalty, but it's not a dumb.
Oh, okay. So what is the penalty?
After it's £2.50 or something.
Okay.
It's equivalent of zakat al-fitr.
Zakat al-fitr.
Yeah.
What is that called? So a big penalty is dam.
Dam. Yeah. This is called sadaqah. Let's just say.
Okay. Have to do sadaqah, right?
So, so what I want to focus on is the things that require dam, because anything else, anything less than that is either going to be zakat al-fitr or even less. There's the penalties are like camel, sheep or goat. Then from there sadaqah al-fitr, which is £2.50 around, and then from there anything you want, just any sort of charity. So those ones, because what I say is before you leave Mecca, just give out some charity with intention, because you could have ended up doing some violation. So just give have an amount of money that you
make the intention that it is for.
Yeah, just in case.
Could you just make an intention for dam before you leave? Just.
Yeah, not dumb, because the dumb is the sheep. Like if you want to do a
say
sheep,
you got money left over.
And I say look at the dumb. Don't look at it as oh no, I've got to do a dumb. Look at it as it's you're benefiting people. Yeah, so it's to give, and it's going to cost you between £100 to £110. They said.
Yeah.
And so
when would you?
go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when should we do this? Before we start the Umrah or the Hajj?
No, don't do it before. Don't do it before, because because you can't do a penalty before you've done the penalty. So
I thought you said you could give them. At the end.
Yeah.
You should give it.
So once everything's done, then just give out.
Can your dam be applied retrospectively if you didn't have an intention? Say you don't know, you've got a doubt, you've made a mistake, but you're not sure. You're going to go back and check.
The rule is if you're not sure, you haven't got it. You've got to be sure. You're going to know you did it. But if you're saying I'm just going to do it anyway, okay, then because as long as you're unsure and you know your as long as you know you're unsure, it's not going to. It's not really a penalty. There's no penalty. Okay. But what happens sometimes is that you do your Hajj. What happened with us? We do our Hajj, and then about a year later you think, oh my God, I had to do a dam. Okay. The scholars differ on those situations. Most of the scholars say the dam has to be performed in Mecca. So all you'll do with that is very easy. That situation, and you know some friends that are going on an umrah, and you just say, can you do a dam for me? Okay. So Imam Shafi'i was the position it could be done anywhere. So worst case scenario, if that's too much of a difficulty, which isn't a difficulty, I don't think, then you can get it just done here. Okay.
I've just got a question about my previous Umrah. I only found out later that if you do touch the Kaaba when in Ihram, because the scent goes on to you, it's a penalty. Or
but did it cover a whole limb?
Well,
if you had your hands,
I had all my hands on it. So
Yeah, but did you have the back of your
hand?
hands?
We didn't have the
I
back
don't think I
of
had.
No, so that's not a dam.
Okay.
Yeah. But what I do say in
But
Ihram.
I was even brushing against it every time I walked.
There wasn't a whole limb though.
Yeah. Now garments. They say it's a hand span basically. So if an area was a hand span, wait a minute though. For clothing, it has to be on there for the full length of a day.
Sunrise.
So it wasn't the whole
Oh
day.
right, okay. Because I mean, just when we did our tawaf.
No.
Yeah, and I always recommend
didn't
if you're in
think
Ihram,
about
never
that.
go near the Kaaba. If you're in a state of
Yes,
Ihram, when you're doing any sort of tawaf in a state of Ihram, always be on the periphery.
Is that only because it's centered? The
That's
Kaaba?
an issue. And also, you can't focus, because you realise that you're doing this tawaf that's necessary. There's more stress involved, and so if you're in there, lots of issues can happen. You can end up not facing the Kaaba because for the whole of the tawaf you've got to have this side. There are instances where you end up doing that. If you do that, you've got to go back on yourself.
That's
because-
the other issue.
yeah. Yeah. All sorts.
Because when I did stop for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Stopping.
No, but
Yeah.
you can stop. That's okay.
But I was facing it though.
Yeah. So if I do
So if
this,
you're not
and then I
facing-
move. So here I've got the Kaaba.
Yeah.
Okay. Here it's come out.
Oh, it's gone off.
Yeah, so I think it's just refocusing me. So it's if I go like this or I go like this, no problem. But I can't move because if I do this now, then there was a point where I didn't have the left side here. Okay. Now, was that a necessary tawaf? Was that part of your?
I think that might
Was it
be-
part of your actual umrah?
No, it was after
It might have been a nafil tawaf.
Yeah. So that's not. There's nothing to it. This is an issue for each of us,
Could you
and that's.
just clarify where we stand when we are doing?
I'm going to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to do that tawaf. But the thing is that's why it's important. A necessary tawaf, i.e. your umrah or your hajj tawafs, make sure you're well away from the Kaaba. You can do it on the other levels, okay, just to minimise those risks. Okay, so that's a really important point about cloves fragrance. I've got to confirm that point, but I'm pretty sure is that it's a hand span and it has to be on there for a day. I'm sure about that. I just need to confirm that there. Consuming food is an issue where scent dominates the food. So toothpaste, things like that, menthols. So say worst case scenario, you've got a really bad sore throat, and you've got to have some sort of sweet that's got like mint or something. Obviously, try to avoid that sort of stuff. But if it's necessary to apply something for medicinal purposes, you've got a choice between three. Either you feed 6 people, you fast 3 days, or you give the dam. You've got a choice.
You can't have mints. You can't have chewing gum.
If it's minty, if it's got a strong scent to it,
Like somebody else can smell it.
yeah, and it's minty, it's like got a minty. Then that's. Yeah.
I do it for
So it's an
sickness,
essential,
anti-sickness.
like an essential oil sort of stuff to it. If it's necessary for you to take it, that's a different issue. If it's not necessary, then don't take it in Ihram.
What would you define as necessary?
Medical
like
need.
travel sickness, intake mints.
Medical need.
Yeah. So you got travel sickness.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
take mints for travel for sickness.
Yeah. Are there other ones that aren't sent?
There's medication you can take for travel
Yeah.
sickness.
It's best if it's mint. That's a strong
So you can't
fragrance.
have minted toothpaste then. So
No, like
don't
in
brush
Ihram.
your teeth.
Sorry.
So
No, there's
do-
plenty of
What about the
toothpaste.
children's toothpaste?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
There's so many options of
Mm.
toothpaste out there. It's unbelievable.
I never know.
There's that baking soda ones and all that. They're not all.
Oh, that one that I use.
That doesn't
is
have
really
mint in it.
horrible.
Yeah. Oh, there's.
What are the names?
There's like an
Basic
aloe
oil.
one that you can
You
get.
can
as
use
well.
siwak.
Yeah, no, yeah, but some people just can't. I mean, personally, I can't use siwak.
Okay.
Like, I just find it difficult to use, and So some people that find that difficult. Honestly, there's so many different toothpastes out there. You've got no, it's not an issue. And, so that's something to think about. Consuming food with a food scent. So it's going to be quite strong. So they've told me that toothpaste and like something like that equivalent, where it's got really minty, like strong, like that would. Now, what's the penalty on that? I think it is a dumb if it's if it covers a full mouth. Like you're scenting your whole mouth with it. So. Covering a quarter or more of the head or face for the duration of a diet. We've already mentioned that, haven't we, about clothing? I think that's clear for people with the clothing issue. So if you have blankets or a jacket on your shoulders, that's not considered a violation of Ihram because you're not wearing it as it normally would be worn. Okay? Let's see if fines. So if a violation is committed out of necessity, you have the choice of. Okay.
And that's a sacrifice is any sacrifice. A sheep, goat, or camel.
It'd be a sheep, yeah, a sheep. Okay. So you basically get £100 or 110 to £110. Let me see if I'm missing anything. No. Okay. Cutting less than a quarter of the head, pulling out more than 3 hairs, cutting less than 5 nails, applying fragrance to less than a limb, applying less. All this killing of animals and stuff like that. That's got no. There's nothing. Or pulling trees and stuff. I don't worry about all that sort of stuff. There has to be a natural tree that's there. The animal, like insects, are fine to kill as long as they're harmful. You don't go around there burning ants with your magnifying glass, okay? But it's not a dump, okay? So anything less than that is not a dump. That's all you really need to know. So the hand soap is the biggest one.